Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Want to welcome everyone to the 2020. If everybody could please close your OV windows so that we won't have any feedback. We want to welcome everyone to the 2020 VREP Voter Registration, Education, and Participation film series. And we started it off with
So he said close
a pretty
that.
excellent film.
Yes.
One vote. Man, I watched it 3 times today.
Did you really?
Yes.
Second. Yeah.
And it's an amazing film. We're going to get into it, but I just want to thank the Libertarian Party of Arkansas for coming in and co-sponsoring and co-hosting this screening. We did reach out to all of the political parties in Arkansas to give them the invitation to participate in this. And the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Greens did not answer any of our invitations, but the Libertarian Party, they jumped on it. I want to thank them for participating in this. And with that, I am Kwame Abdul-Bey.
I'm Clarice.
And we are the co-conveners of the Arkansas Peace and Justice Memorial Movement, one of the 6 nonprofit organizations that have joined together to bring you the Shelter in Place virtual film series. And with that, I want to go ahead and give you an opportunity. We have a standard opening that we do.
Okay. So we have a green screen situation happening. I don't know if you can fix that, but we'll ignore it for now.
Hold on, let me try to fix that.
While he's doing that, we always like to start with at least 20 minutes, or I'm sorry, not 20 minutes, 20 seconds of silence when we film or we show a film that has anything to do with social justice or advocacy. We know that the people who trailblazed for us may have been either killed or they passed away. And so we right now have lost 2 giants. We've lost many this year, but 2 that I want to mention. The most recent one, of course, ladies first, is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who just passed away.
The notorious RBG.
Yes.
Yes.
Notorious RBG just passed away, and she was the Associate Supreme Court Justice. Also, she was a volunteer for the ACLU, and who the organization has done some major work as it relates to voting rights suppression and also knowing your rights when you vote.
And women's rights.
And women's rights.
Strong advocate.
Absolutely.
For rights.
And then before this one giant passed, we had another one, which is John Lewis, who passed away. And if it were not for his leadership, him being a part of the leadership of the civil rights movement and marching on that Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965, it wouldn't have started or spurred or started the fire of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So we want to make sure that we are giving homage, if you will, to these 2 giants. And we'll do that in just 20 seconds of silence. Not only them, but if you are a person of a black or brown or a person of color, indigenous in this country, affording the right to act has been a major task. And I want to echo Dr. Brenda Williams. I want to say that during the film, you were registering a family, a couple to vote and went to their home. It was so moving. And you were in tears saying to them, thanking them and honoring them because of their sacrifice. Not only that, because of the sacrifice of our ancestors, that we are here today and you are able to be there to help them register to vote. So I just want to thank you for that. And I also so I'm going to shut up so we can do our 20 seconds thanking all of those people, and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Let's start with, for those of you that are watching on OV, if you click on the speakers tab, you will be able to see the short bios that each of the panelists sent in for us to post on there with their pictures. But we want to also give you guys right now an opportunity to introduce yourselves formally, and anything you want to add to that short bio, please feel free to do so. And where should we start? Let's start with
Well,
we're looking this way. So we're looking at attorney Christine Woodhouse.
Yeah.
So please introduce yourself.
Hey, first of all, I just want to say thank you to you guys. It's an honor to be part of your program this year and helping kick off the program. And we're just really thankful to be included. And it's, of course, we all love to see love coming back to the film, and I could feel it, coming from you. I think that we have something special. It was a kernel of an idea that I had, but it was really these wonderful people and the crews that were on site on Election Day 2016 that captured something that was beyond my expectations. But anyway, so thank you so much for letting us be part of it. Yeah, I directed the film, and it takes a little bit of insanity to make a documentary. I'm just telling you that right now, but I have it, so it was good. I have the insanity, and I brought it to the film, and I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
I tell you one thing, that is some really good insanity. We need more of that.
Yeah.
Okay, now next we have Christine Doeg. Did I pronounce it correct?
It's close enough.
Doeg.
Doeg, and I'm used
Doeg, yeah, Doeg.
used to it being it wrong. So it's fine.
Christine Doeg,
Doeg, yes.
please introduce yourself. You're the executive producer.
Yes,
And you're the person behind the scenes that I worked with to get this up and running today.
Right.
So please
Right.
introduce
I'm-
yourself.
yeah, I'm hi. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am the official cat herder, I think is what my job is. So executive producer is just a very fancy title for cat herder, and that's kind of my role is just keeping things moving in the right direction, or that's what I try to do anyway. So but it's been an incredible experience working with this. I kind of came on the scene after actually the film was made, and have been extraordinarily honored to be a part of it and to help get it out, to get it seen. So thank you for having us.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And Michael Hauser,
Heiser.
please. Heiser or
Heiser.
Heiser?
Heiser, yeah.
Michael, you're labeled yourself as Christine
They've been
Woodhouse.
playing- they've been
I don't know how it keeps happening. Every time I log in, it does that.
He's always trying to do that. Yeah.
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 Please introduce yourself.
Michael Heiser, working for many, many years to restore voting rights to convicted felons. Firm believer in liberty, and that each citizen of the United States is the feet of liberty.
Mhm. Indeed, indeed. And finally, we have Dr. Brenda Williams, the voice, the sultry voice. When she went into that jail and just started singing.
Yeah, turn me around. We gotta get you to
Yes,
we can get you to sing that at the end. That'd be so great.
yes, I will.
Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. This is Brenda Chapman Williams of Sumter, South Carolina, on the horn. Back in the day, the old folk used to say, is a good one. And by saying that, it is a good one. That one vote is a good one. That portrayed what happens in America. What happened behind the scenes is another matter, but we stood firm in trying to show the nation that we're not trying to push Democrat or Republican or independent or anything. We're just trying to push the message in our own special way that the vote is precious, and our desire to keep it preserved and keep it alive is real. And we're honored to be on this program today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay, had a radio voice going.
Yes, I love that. Now, one thing that she opened the door where I actually was going there, but I'm glad she opened the door. We had what, 5 states? I got Illinois, Alaska, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Nebraska. 5 states that were featured in this film. And so we're showing simultaneous stories of the America that we don't see on these 5 and 6 o'clock news.
Yes.
Attorney Woodhouse, how did you do this? How did your insanity bring all of this together? Because it's a wonderful piece of storytelling that everyone needs to see. And Christine Duegg, you got a lot of work to do to get this out. But
Yeah.
Attorney Woodhouse, please talk to us.
Oh, I got you. So first of all, Christine Doig has gotten this film to thousands of people that would not
Right.
have seen it without her, because
Right.
I was real tired after making the film. And she stepped in and she was like, no, man, come on, you got a cowboy up here and we're going to get this film out there. So thank you to her, because this wouldn't have happened and we wouldn't all be here today without her. We have we're doing screenings at college campuses now, virtual screenings just like this. In 2018, we took an earlier cut of the film, which was pretty good, maybe not as polished as what you just watched 3 times today, to 65-ish college campuses. And we're doing as many as we can this year. So the idea for the film was not necessarily to film in those particular states. The idea was to show people in the United States who are from diverse walks of life, but on election day, they're all kind of doing the same thing, right? And that doesn't happen that often because we have different faiths and we have different lifestyles, but on election day, Americans are essentially doing the same thing, but in very different ways, right? So it was a little bit just to show, hey, if you live in Florida, you might not know what it's like to vote in Chicago or what it's like to vote in Alaska. And that was the beginning of the idea, just to show the diversity of the country. And then we had the idea to softly touch on voting rights through a story-based approach, right? So instead of a professor talking to people about voting rights, I wanted to show Michael Heiser, right? I wanted to show somebody who was fighting for felon voting rights. We wanted to touch on voter ID, right? Which we all hear a lot about, but I thought, well, rather than hear someone talk about it, let's show people who are struggling with the voter ID requirements, who want to vote, but are really having a hard time, and what it takes, right? For people who are facing voter ID requirements. Ultimately, look, Brenda was able to get these people to vote, but I'm not sure that they would have without a Brenda Williams. And does every community have a Brenda Williams? Probably not, because there's only one, right?
Right.
We wanted a long journey, and I met some cool people around the country trying to find that long journey story. We wanted someone who's taking people to the polls, and Warren Buffett. I mean, maybe we could have gotten a better character, but okay, we took Warren Buffett when he said he was going to do that. And then the idea of Chicago was a little bit of a throwback, right? So 100 years ago, election day used to be kind of a party, and there mostly people voted in taverns, or very commonly they voted in taverns. And then there, let's be honest, there were a lot of drunken disorderlies on election day 100 years ago. And a lot of people got arrested, and there were parades. And so we were trying to connect the election day now with election day past. And that was all part of the nonpartisan approach, right? The idea is that, hey, it's not just about this one election or these candidates. I am so sick of hearing people say this is the most important election of our lifetime. Every election is important. And the gospel song at the end that you hear over the credits, that's actually the song that Brenda is singing very first thing in the morning when she's just folding up the laundry and taking it up the stairs. And the message of that song is, I'm on the battlefield, right? And it's the idea is that, okay, this election is over. The fight's not over. We're going to get up the next day, and we're just going to go out and put one foot in front of the other and do it all over again. And that was You know,
Mhm.
we're so blessed to have Michael's son, Brandon, as
Mhm.
such a beautiful character in the film. And when I
Yes.
saw
Mhm.
that shot of him sitting up in bed, we can all relate to that, right? We were
Yeah.
all little kids listening, like, what's happening downstairs
Yeah.
when you're in bed? And he sits up in bed. And what we were trying to share was, hey, that's what the elections are about. They're about him. They're about that little boy in Omaha who puts his face up in the camera like that. You know, they're about the little baby in Chicago and the son in Alaska. They're about the future. And so we thought it was appropriate to kind of wind up, you know, focused on a young person. So that was a long answer, but that's
No,
a
No,
little
it
bit
was
of how the film came
beautiful.
together. I will tell you, the film crew from South Carolina called me at the end of the day and they said, Christine, did you know that Brenda was going to sing? Did you know about that? I was like, what? They said, oh yeah, she's singing the whole day. She just walked into the jail. She started singing. And I was like, oh Lord. And then I said, well, can she sing? And they said, she can sing. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, good. All right, we got it. So that was a little bit of documentary gold right there. But
Yeah.
thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
It was perfect. I really feel like that with VREP, we talk about voter registration, education, participation,
It's a process,
and it
not
being
an
a
event.
process, right?
Yes.
And just not an event. And we really saw that throughout the
Oh my
film,
gosh.
is that it's
So
not just the voting part, like the registering to vote, but
Yes.
also the process in which you go through to vote. I love the advocacy that was going on in the film with catching people going outside and saying, excuse me, what's going on, what's happening, and really caring about what was happening with people at the voting polls. We
Yes.
saw the voter registration, education, and participation during this, in that you have to participate in the process of voting, even like you said, Christine, even after you vote, that there is a process of making sure that you stay connected, even with the people you didn't vote for, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
making sure you're holding them accountable.
Yeah.
And I really loved, Brenda, how you were, Dr. Williams, how you
Yes.
how you portrayed that, and in its honesty. And I know it was an honest portrayal, but I really loved it throughout the movie, that was you showing that whole process that we are trying to get out there. So thank you all very, very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're
I want to mention too that this film, this documentary, meant and still means a whole lot to myself, to my family, to our community. Why? Because we are so passionate about rights, civil rights. We're so passionate about human rights,
Yeah.
decency, honesty. And when the vote is ever threatened, it is our utmost responsibility to make sure we fight for the survival and preservation of the vote. And going out into the real world, going out into the lower income housing projects and to the trailer parks and into the jail, areas where people have historically been disenfranchised.
Yeah.
It's so very, very urgent that we take our voter registration forms, voter education, encouragement to vote along with us. And one vote showed in just a short period of time a picture of a snapshot of what happens on election day. And it was a whole lot of stuff
Yeah.
that goes on fighting legislatures, etc., particularly in the Deep South. But nationwide, there are efforts to, restrict the vote, stop the vote. So we just feel encouraged. Lastly, every time I look at this film, and I've seen it a zillion times, I know everybody's dialogue, everybody, listen. Every time I look at it, I can't help but cry tears well up in my eyes. I feel the burning
Yes.
inside my eye sockets. As I'm looking at it, my heart thumps because here are people who the community, society has overlooked, and
Yeah.
we're getting them to come out to vote.
Mhm.
Homeless people, even
Yes.
coming out to vote. People that used to be incarcerated
Yes.
are
That was,
now released from jail, and the first thing on their minds is going to the polls to vote. That's powerful.
yes, it is.
And
Yes,
what
it
is your backstory that led you and your husband to do what you do?
Yeah, well, we were born and raised. My husband, Joseph Cecil Williams, and I've been married 45 years, thank the Lord.
Wonderful.
And we were born and raised in the South, in Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia. He is from Catala, Georgia. And we knew of, experienced the discrimination, prejudice, can't ride on the front of the bus and can't drink from certain water fountains. When you get school books, they're usually torn up. Microscope lenses are usually broken by the time they got to the Black schools because the white schools had already abused those things. But our teachers didn't let that stop them. They told us, we're going to teach you all and you're going to learn whether or not the microscopes are broken, whether or not the books lack pages. Our parents taught us also to fight, stand up,
Mhm.
and when you get old enough, vote. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to finish. Listen, I could talk all day and night. You'll be 75 years old and I'll still be talking. Listen, when Christine Woodhouse called me one day, we were in Catala, Georgia, way in West Georgia in the country. And I met Christine over the phone that day. I honestly could not believe my ears when she told me she was doing a documentary and that there would be some wonderful people selected from all over the country, 5 people, and Warren Buffett was one. I said, okay, stop right there. You have to be kidding. You're not telling me the truth. Tell me the truth. And she said, don't tell anybody about it right now, because we'll release that. But listen, it's more than an honor. This is a great time to push this film, to promote it to the nth degree. Voting is more than just casting a ballot. It's
Yes.
much more than that. It's much more than that. It means so much to exercise that right that's guaranteed to us in the Constitution. And one vote puts it in a nutshell.
That's right.
That might be a nice moment to hear from Michael, because I would say that I learned from Michael Heiser while I was making this film. I learned the lesson that I thought I was going to teach the audience, right?
Yeah.
In my I was so sure of myself. And then when I watched this footage, I learned the lesson myself with a lot more humility than I had going in, about what it means to someone to be counted, to know that their voice matters to the rest of their society. And I really had to say I learned that from Michael Heiser.
Michael,
well,
tell us about it.
It's just that most people take it for granted, the vote, and they don't even vote. I think 36% of the country doesn't even vote. Probably higher than that now, but with all the disenfranchisement that goes on, the people don't get that you're not a citizen in this country unless you have the right to vote. Like, you can pay taxes all you want, but if you don't have a voice, then you're not a citizen. You may be an employee of this country. You can give them money, right? But your voice doesn't matter. You don't have any say in democracy, and democracy demands that all people participate, or it's not democracy any longer. And if there isn't all participation, at least everybody has the right to vote, then we don't have a democratic society. What we have is an oligarchy. What we have is people telling you that you don't have the right to have a voice. And once we start weighing people to see if they're good enough to vote, eventually somebody's going to weigh you.
Mhm.
Eventually, the party that you don't like is going to be in power. And they're going to say, well, you're not going to vote for me, so I'll weigh you next. And let's see, I don't like people who wear church hats. I don't like people who dress that way, or who sag, or who cuss. They'll come up with some excuse. You got to think about it. In the Constitution of Kentucky, the words are felons, idiots, and insane persons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like
In the
idiots and
Constitution?
insane. Yeah. In the how do you define idiot? Like they ask me to vote for them. There's plenty of idiots out there every day voting, but once we start weighing people, no one has the right to take away someone's vote. No one. It's God-given if you're an American citizen. And so if I'm not going to have the right to vote, then I also don't want to pay taxes, because that would be taxation. I'm just saying, that's taxation without representation.
That
Our
is.
country was founded on that. We fought a war over that.
That's right.
So, Michael, I always think that on election day on 2016, which is a bit in the rearview mirror now, right? But that for you, it wasn't just you personally, and you symbolizing where you were in your life journey, casting that ballot, but that also there was a bit the weight on your shoulders of hundreds of thousands of your fellow citizens in Kentucky who weren't able to vote. It was kind of a twofer. You know, you had both your personal journey, but also the symbolism of representing other.
At that
citizens.
time, 315,000 people vote. And that's not just all of them. That's the number of people who had completed their sentence.
Mhm.
Right? These are people who have paid all their fines and who are actively paying taxes, and they didn't have the right to vote. That's the size of an entire town.
Mhm.
And you can't say that you represent Kentucky if you don't represent 315,000 people.
Yeah.
So you really don't represent Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so out of those 315,000, I wonder how many people had a great ideal and no one could ever hear it.
Yeah.
And how sad it is in a democracy to squash the voice of the people who give you the power. And so for me, it meant everything. And it was also very sad.
It was very sad.
Because I knew that I get to vote because out there that couldn't.
I love
I
the,
was a felon. I was a criminal. I was a criminal. I did bad, all of this stuff. So, and there were people out there who were felons who lost their right to vote, who didn't do anything in society wrong. And they'll never be able to vote in Kentucky.
Mhm.
And that's wrong. So it was a great moment. And I thought about my mother and I cried because I was excited that I could finally be counted as a human.
Mhm.
I could finally have a voice in my community.
Yeah.
No amount of degrees mattered to me. No amount of education mattered to me. The only thing that mattered to me was a right to say to someone, no, I don't want to vote for you. I want to vote for this other voice because this other voice has better ideals.
So, Kwame, I'll tell you guys that in the whole film, we have Warren Buffett, right? We have the amazing Dr. Brenda Williams, but the scene that I point to is the scene with Michael's son on top of his back, where they're
Yes.
talking, and just a parent and a child
Yes.
talking.
What are we
and
gonna
this
do
is Why
today?
is today so important? Because I get to go vote, and that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Turtle Time. Yeah, Turtle Time. Turtle Time was developed so that I could spend time with my child, and he couldn't see my face, because children respond differently when they see the reaction of your facial expression. And so I developed a time every single day where he could have a voice and talk without being judged, with no judgment. And so he could say anything he wants to say during that time. And then there's no penalty or punishment. He could tell me he lied. He could tell me he lied to his mother. He could do anything he wanted, talk about anything, talk about school lunch. He could talk about anything he wanted to talk about. And at the end of it, I would just ask him, do you want some advice? And if he says no, I honor that.
Wow.
Like, great, I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. And he's guaranteed that time every day since he was born.
That's
Beautiful. Beautiful.
We have a 5-year-old, and I think we're gonna start doing turtle
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Turtle time.
Yeah, Christine.
And even to this day, he's 12 now. This day, he's
Yeah.
guaranteed 15. I mean, but he's guaranteed 15 minutes of contact with just him, where he's allowed to have a voice. And I work like 15, 16 hours a day.
Yes.
All right, so
That's beautiful, Michael. That is beautiful. Christine, I'm gonna come back to you, Michael, because I have a question about COVID and how it's affected your social work and your advocacy work, all of you actually. But Christine, you were saying something before the Zoom froze up, and I wanted to make sure that you were able to say what you wanted to say.
She's muted.
gotta
Too bad
unmute.
for you. I'm not muted anymore. That's the scene that if I have one chance with someone, like a famous person or something like that, to show them what the film's about, that's the scene. I don't know why that's just what I go to, because there are a lot of, there's a lot of media content out there about voting, and it's all big, it's like a map of the United States, and these are the candidates, and people talking about why it's so important to vote. And this film flips that around, and we start with the smallest level, right? A single vote, a single person's story. And that's what it's
Gotta let
about.
'em see the baby.
So that one works really well to illustrate what we're trying to say.
Well, you flipped a couple of storylines that I really appreciated. Even bringing Michael's story in as the felon that's trying to get his voting rights restored. We do have a documentary in this series that's stationed in Florida that's dealing with Black people that are doing the same thing. And the thing there is that that's the story that we all see and that we all know. But seeing Michael's story, it helps show all of the viewers, all of America, that this 13th Amendment situation is affecting everyone, not just not just a little segment of people that you can forget about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I say something? And I know you didn't mean, because I know you're talking with your legal mind, but you said as the felon. I like to say
Thank you.
Formerly
person.
incarcerated. Yes.
Person,
Yes,
individual that was
indeed,
formerly
indeed.
incarcerated. So he
Thank you.
said it, and I just got, ugh. And
Mhm.
and I didn't want to show my expression.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
But
One that I liked to use was Citizen in Transition.
yes,
Yeah.
There you go.
Citizen in Transition.
yes.
I was transitioning from a life where I was excommunicated from society
That's right.
and being allowed to be back in society. Now, of course, I'm not a victim.
That's right.
Now, I earned mine. Like I was guilty of every single thing they ever charged me with. All right, I was a horrible person who was brought up in a socioeconomic system of poverty, and poverty just doesn't It just doesn't care about, just doesn't care about is, and having no dad affects you no matter what color you are.
That's right.
Having no money, living like I grew up in a garage. Like we didn't live in a house in the projects. We lived in a garage in the projects. I was looked down on by the black people, and made fun of and beat for being white, growing up in because I grew up in the inner city of Louisville, Kentucky in the projects. And I was the first white person in the project. And I really was, because my mom was a single mother with 5 kids who worked 15 hours a day as a waitress. And a waitress itself is an addiction to poverty. Because that money every day keeps you coming back because you have to have it, but there's no way to get off of it. Right. And so for her whole life, she suffered under that and could never break free of that, and even until she died. And so being born into that, and you see all the people selling drugs and being abused. I was sexually molested as a child. And so all of that going on, I just wanted some relief. Now, I'm not a social worker, so it's kind of a misprint. And so I'm a very logical thinking person, and so I catch every mistake like anybody ever does, and it's horrible of me, and I don't mean to, but I do it. It's just the way my brain works. And so I'm a therapist. Not a social worker. I have a marriage and family. I had the first marriage and family therapy degree of Kentucky.
Yes.
And so, and I went to a marriage and family therapy school, and I also have a license in addiction, and of course several other degrees. I have an addiction to education as well. I don't do anything halfway, but the importance of upward mobility in our country has been squashed by infighting.
Yes.
They keep us busy hating, and then we can't see them picking our pocket. Right? What I like to do is turn on CNN and CSNBC and then mute it, and then say to myself, whoever wins this fight, it's going to cost me money.
Michael, I wanted to say that one of the
both sides are corrupt.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I'm sorry. I was just, it doesn't matter who wins, both sides are corrupt.
Yes.
The whole system's corrupt right now. It's almost like wrestling. After the commercial, they all go have a beer together.
Yes.
In their rich mansions, while we all sit here and give them money out of our paychecks every week and beg them to give us more of our money back. And
but one thing, ladies and gents,
we forget that we're in charge. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, one thing that One Vote documentary points out and highlights the fact that people who are incarcerated, people who have been labeled as felons, in some states, we pray that the whole United States one day would grant these individuals the rights that are theirs through the U.S. Constitution. But in South Carolina, if you are a felon, if you have been labeled as a felon, then if you have served all of your time and not on probation or not on parole, you can vote. Now that's true inside the jail as well as inside the community. One Vote documentary highlighted the fact that this problem with disenfranchisement of people who are ex-offenders, people who are trying to acclimate and blend back into the society, who may have had brushes with the law, still are American citizens. No matter what, they paid their dues, they have done the time, they paid for their givings. And now it's time to give them back that right. So the One Vote documentary, thank goodness, pointed out that felons, those persons who are ex-offenders, those persons who have been incarcerated for one reason or the other, are still Americans once they have served their time, and not to be punished over and over and over again for something that happened in their lives. And so I'm so glad we had the opportunity to be in this documentary showing the importance of voting in so many different aspects of our lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I wanted to ask you, Michael and Christine, and
Just everybody.
everybody really, how has COVID-19 affected your work? Like, how has it, I know it's stopped a lot of things. We've all had to use the very famous word we all use is pivot in our work to do something different. How is it affected your advocacy?
We kind of transitioned with it.
Mhm.
So we did a really good job in
Michael,
the
your connection is bad.
pretty you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Are you there?
Okay.
Yes.
Start over.
So yeah, so we just kind of transitioned with it. Now it did affect us in a different way. So a lot of the people who were getting sober relapsed.
Relapse.
Right. So it affected, and the overdose rate went up 30%. The alcohol abuse rate went up. Now, if alcoholism goes up, something else strange happens. The family unit breaks apart.
Mm.
Because the dad who didn't have the job and the mom who didn't have the job are now at home drinking, and they're fighting, because with alcoholism comes violence.
Right.
Mhm.
And so the spouse abuse has went up, domestic violence has shot up, children's suicide has went up.
Mhm.
All of these things have all increased. Connection to healthcare has went down. And so what we did was we developed, we moved all of our people to Zoom. And now what we do is different, I guess, just as it's part of our mission statement to treat humans equally and to remove barriers. And so we just give them a device.
Can't hear you, Michael.
You know, I said, we just give them a device. We just buy them all a phone. And so they all have access to healthcare.
Great.
And we received a $2 million grant so that even if they don't have health insurance, we can still see them.
Great.
That's awesome.
And I do that pro bono.
All right.
Beautiful.
And I wanted
I
to
don't
mention on our
charge
end,
for
my
the ones
husband-
that don't have healthcare.
okay.
Dr.
My
Williams?
husband, Joseph, is a physician just like myself. His specialty is internal medicine, geriatric medicine, and medical directorship, and I'm in family practice. Well, in April, after my husband had admitted close to 12 patients in just a couple of days, he came down with COVID infection himself.
Wow.
He started coughing one night, going into the hospital to admit some patients. And the next day was tested. And the next day he was found he was positive and was quarantined at our home. And I was taking care of him with the mask, the gown, the shoe covers, everything, all the PPE, and still got COVID. My husband suffered more than I did: fever, chills, loss of taste, etc. And when it came down to voting and voter registration, voter signing up for absentee voting, well, that knocked a big blow in what we were used to doing.
Yeah.
For the past 12 years, since 2008, I've been going out to our jail here in town and registering and helping to vote by absentee ballot over 7,000 inmates in 12 years. And when COVID came along, then the
Wow.
jails did not allow anybody, any outsiders to come to the jail because they were afraid that someone might be infected, come into the jail, and those inmates live in dormitories, just like in college settings. And if one gets COVID, the whole jail gets COVID. They have about 360 some odd places for inmates. Then some of the correctional officers came down with COVID. So the jail was all out. I had to figure out a way, how in the world could I reach all those inmates in time and get the paperwork done in South Carolina? The paperwork is voluminous when you talk about absentee voting. But well, I ended up right now sending out letters to the inmates, to the women. There were 20 women in the jail, 20 in that jail, Sumter Lee Regional Detention Center. Well, all 20 women got the letter with a picture of myself saying, "Hi, I'm Brenda Williams of the Family Unit Incorporated. We help inmates. We've given houses away to inmates, et cetera, et cetera. Please vote." And I found out this week a very, very pleasant thing, that several of the women who received that paperwork, they didn't know me from a can of paint, but several of the women filled out the paperwork, the voter registration applications, filled out the paperwork, the request for absentee ballot applications, filled it out and mailed it in that self-addressed stamped envelope that we included with our package to the inmates. That was very impressive. And again, I say this, the One Vote documentary highlighted that point so very, very well. When you look at Bernie, the guy that was locked up in jail, at first I didn't recognize him because I've seen so many inmates and I see him on the street. They say, "Hey, Doc, how you doing?" Okay, now check this out. And I have very poor hearing. I need a hearing aid now. I'm being checked for one. But anyway, out of all of that noise and clutter and chatter at the courthouse that day, I don't know how I heard Bernie's voice, and the lady at the voter registration office who was giving him the wrong information about his ID and stuff. I heard that. And then come to find out Bernie was one that registered to vote in the jail.
Yes.
By me.
Yes.
And he had the documentation that he needed, but he was just given, unfortunately, incorrect information at the voter registration offices. He was willing to walk at least 10 miles to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get documents and stuff that he didn't even have to do.
Right.
And so that is a testimony right there that every vote has and tells a story.
Yes.
Every vote.
Brenda, I have been wanting to ask you this. So, you know, the Lee Sumter Regional Detention Center, they get a credit, right, in the movie. Like it's your name and your family. And then, you know, I wonder if there's any way we can get that film shown in that jail. I will make it available to them. I will drive there and show it on a.
I think we lost Dr. Williams.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we lost Brenda.
She'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll be back. Yeah,
been
your
trying to
your
turn-
volume is really
Yeah.
low, Christine.
Yeah, Christine, your volume's really.
Your
She may
volume
have
is
been
very
trying
low.
to turn her volume up and accidentally.
All right, well, I want to go to Christine. We have the 2020 election that is what, 40 something days away. So this documentary was done in 2016. What has changed? What is different? And how are you using a documentary that was made 4 years ago to tell the story of what's going on now?
Oh, I can't hear her.
I hear you at all.
I'm talking to you.
Oh, you're talking to mine.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, you,
Christine
Well,
D.
Christine D.
Yeah, that'll work. Well, I mean, we are, you know, we're doing everything we can to get it in front of people. We did have it on, you know, it is on Amazon and Google and all the streaming platforms, which was a big deal for us to get it on there. And I think that, what we're hoping is that we really want people to see this documentary as a positive thing, a hopeful message, because there's so many messages out there right now that aren't very hopeful. And so I think it just, when people watch it, and we saw this when we took it to all the university campuses and to the film festivals and other screenings that we've done, people see it and they are really struck about how all of the people in the film are struggling to, are going through and jumping over such huge hurdles and, in order to vote. And so the idea being that in any election, and in this way, I think the film can be evergreen. It's, this is what it's about. It's not about whoever the specific candidates are, whoever the, whatever the specific issues are, but the participation. One of my favorite scenes in the film really is when Brenda's in the penitentiary and the gentlemen vote, and as they're walking out, and of course the beautiful music comes up, and the guy says, "It feels good to vote."
Yes.
That's my
Yes.
favorite line. Much as I love you, Michael, that's my favorite line in the home film. I think it shows.
Too late.
I think what it shows is how the
Don't cop
participation,
deuces now.
how participation, but by voting, you then have this connection to your community.
Mhm.
And I think that, the fact that Brenda makes that available to these people,
Yeah.
that how meaningful that is. I mean, and just the that it's so meaningful to have that connection to your community, and how maybe that would help someone who has been on the wrong side of the law, recognize that, that I as a person, I count, and I mean something, and I have this responsibility to my community. My story about the film is, I'm the privileged white woman who, wouldn't go vote. Missed a lot of elections because
You would not vote?
I was busy. I had something to lunch
You
date,
busy.
whatever.
That's like a blasphemy.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Until I saw
this
Too
group.
busy for democracy.
exactly. And so this film changed my life, completely changed my life. Christine, she and I are friends from way back, and brought it to my home and showed it. And I sat on my floor of my living room and just cried and felt so much shame. And I had taken for granted the fact how easy it is for me to go 2 miles down the street to my lovely library and vote, and practically not even stand in a line. So anyways, I think that,
And juxtapose that with the difficulty that all of the characters in the film
right.
had to go through to get their vote. And you have it so easy, and you choose not to vote.
Right. So
Yeah, but I think that those two things matter.
Yes.
The easier something is, the more we take it for granted.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Yeah.
harder something is, the more important it is to
Right.
us.
Yeah.
So I think
Had
that's
I been able to always vote, I don't know that voting would mean that much to
Right.
me. Like, I was never allowed to vote. I was charged with a felony as a minor.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I was convicted then. And so I never had the right to
Yeah.
vote.
Well, I think that the film, that's why I think the film, the
And-
message is very
So
universal.
for
It
me, it
speaks to
was
people
important.
differently. Yeah, it speaks to people
Right.
like me just as
Yeah.
as loudly as it speaks to people like you, just or Brenda or Michael. I mean, just it shows how how if you're taking it for granted, you shouldn't, because look at these people and how much they struggle and how important it is. And so anyway, so this, like I said, watching the film in my home, and this was almost 2 years ago, I think.
Mhm.
And
I don't think that America understands how fragile democracy is.
yeah.
So can I just say,
Yeah.
so two things. One is, I think you guys I really appreciate this conversation, because the film isn't about one thing, right? It's about a lot of different things. And we're trying to reach people where they are. So
Yeah.
if someone responds to Michael's story,
Yes.
if someone responds to Brenda's story, someone likes the dog sled story, right? We're trying to reach people. And that's the idea of a story-based
Mhm.
ensemble documentary. And so I love when these comments, yay, there she is.
Yeah,
Brenda, I
I
was
need to
just
be
getting
back.
ready to call you so you could
We
sing
were
to
hanging
everybody
on,
on
yes.
the phone. So thank you for coming back. But I also just wanted to say about COVID, when we made the film, we had a goal of making it feel timeless, right? So, you don't hear the names of the candidates in the film and you don't
Right.
hear people talking about who they're voting for.
And I
We weren't
love
trying
that
to-
aspect of it.
It's weird, right? But it works. We weren't trying to peg the film to a certain election. We wanted it to feel evergreen and maybe a little nostalgic, right, in the future. We did not think that the film would feel nostalgic only 4 years later, right? And I think because of the environment that we're in right now, the film is in a unique position because it can give all of us a little bit of a feeling of election day, even though now we're in election season and mail-in voting and it's not going to look like it has. And so we're really going to do a big push to try the couple weeks right before the election to really see if we can drive viewers and give something back to people
Mhm.
who watch the films. Thank you.
I love that. And I love how Christine D just explained,
Christy D, I like that.
Christine D just explained her voting situation. And we have this and it's true to so many other women or men who are just kind of like, oh, I can relate to Christine D. That's where I was, or that's where I am right now. And then we have the family from Alaska who mushed
Right.
8 hours to
Just to get to the car.
be, yeah,
Yeah,
drive several hundred more miles to get to the voting booth.
Mhm.
To make this an all-day thing, but stopping in between to get some food,
At the 7-Eleven.
that was so great. Like, get some food, showing their whole off the grid lifestyle, which I love, and then making it to the polls in time to actually being the first maybe to be at the polling booth to
They were the
vote.
last. No.
They were the
They
last.
almost
They were
missed
the
it.
last.
Did they?
Yes,
Yeah.
they
Wow.
almost missed it. Yeah.
But that was so amazing to me. Just to watch that whole
Hey, bud.
journey. To watch that
Yeah.
whole. This is our son, Lawrence. Say hi.
Hey, Lawrence. It's an honor to meet you.
So just to see that whole transition, that
Yeah.
journey was beautiful. But just to put those two side by side and go, like you said, there are several different situations in different levels that people
Mhm.
go through as it relates to voting, and there is no judgment there because people have their reasons. But I just love how Christine Woodhouse that you guys were able to, both of you were able to just kind of show those different dynamics.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
All right. So
Yes.
what I'd like to do in closing, and also I want to let you guys know that we will be hopefully, and we'll talk to Christy D about this, but we would like to re-show this on Election Day Eve. That's because this is so important. So we would like to re-show that, and I'll talk to you about that later. But in closing, what I would like to do is if Dr. Williams can lead us all
To turn me around is what
in a song that, like, it just encapsulated everything that went on. So do you mind doing that? Do we want to everybody have closing remarks first?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody do a closing remark, then we'll do the song.
With as far as the remarks, what should people be doing? Like in this very important election, as all of them, but even so much more so now, what should people be doing? What should we be doing? And what advice would you give? Just a few minutes.
Well, I'll start. The vote itself is what matters, not who you vote for, but the power that's in the vote, the right to vote, that person that has their voice, that isn't shut up and put in the corner. The power, that's what matters. So this tearing apart because you vote for that or I vote for that, It's anybody's business.
Mhm.
And that's the ideal of the secret ballot. It's, do you have the right to vote?
Yep.
Because you're an American citizen. And then something that is of intentionality, right? Like looking at everybody as if what they're doing, they believe is in the best interest, regardless of what I believe they're doing. I have no idea what's going on in their mind. Most likely they're thinking about themselves, not me, right? Because I'm thinking about me. And so positive intentionality is beautiful, because if you say something that I don't like, I doubt that you were meaning to harm me. Most likely you said something that you thought sounded good, right? And so I don't get offended by that, right? I don't take it personal, because what you said was about you, right? So it's not about me. So I have positive intentionality for people. I see people where they are, and that's where they're supposed to be. That's where God has them, right? And so they've got a future and they've got a journey, and I can't interrupt that.
Wonderful.
And I'll get worse. So taking people at that, and realizing that our vote counts.
Yeah.
Voice matters. Every voice in America matters. And that's how we have freedom.
Absolutely.
Christy
Thank
D,
you, Michael.
how would you like to give us some advice, closing advice?
Gosh, I mean, I think it's important that we help others vote. I think that one of the lessons here, that we certainly see from Brenda, and Michael, just is that we do what we can to help others to vote. The voting laws are so confusing, and they're really made to be confusing, I think. And I think it's important that those of us who have experience, or who have the ability to understand, that we do everything we can to help, to help the people around us to vote. I'm a professor, not right now, but at university, at Belmont University in Nashville. And one of the, in working with my students to get them to vote, it's very hard. It's very difficult, because there's so many different laws and there's so many different rules having to do with absentee voting or voting for the first time. And, and we discovered one very simple thing that was a huge barrier to students voting absentee, and that was having a stamp. And I think that, it's just understanding, those of us who have the ability to understand these things and figure these things out, sometimes we can make a huge difference by just carrying a book of stamps around, which I did all through the 2018 midterm elections. And I had a lot of students that it was like, I don't know how to get a stamp, and some kids these days don't even know how to address an envelope, but, so you have, they were learning opportunities, but I think, any of us who are in those positions, that
Hey,
we need
Chris.
to do what we can to help people.
So my wife used to be a postal worker. Did you know that you can tape the price of a stamp onto the envelope and they'll accept that?
Wow.
Just letting you know. I didn't know you could do that. She
Wow.
taught me that.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. And they'll accept that.
Good.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Thank you for that, Michael.
Yeah, yeah. I learned that last year.
That's pretty cool. You started off mentioning that we have just lost Justice Ginsburg and also John Lewis, and two real champions. I mean, once in 100-year champions of voting rights. And I think the lesson that we have right now that's in the front of my mind is Justice Ginsburg said that she wanted to be remembered as someone who'd used her talents to the best of her ability to repair the tears in our society. And I read that and I thought, gosh, okay. I felt a little tiny bit of pride, because in this film, we are trying to promote communication and healing by not taking a partisan position, and just by sharing the great stories of these amazing Americans. I mean, you can just see two of them right here, but I think that we all have a responsibility to each other, and maybe to honor Justice Ginsburg by respecting other citizens, even people who we disagree with, and respecting everyone's right to vote, right? The election may not go your way, but respecting that vote is going to move us down the field.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, let's finish it off.
Dr. Williams.
Give us some parting words before we get into our song.
You are on mute though.
If you agree, we won't make you sing, but if you
Yeah, Brenda, press the mute button.
Hear you.
You're
though.
on mute.
You're on mute.
You can unmute her.
There you go.
Yes, all right. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Listen, have your voter registration status checked for all people, not only in South Carolina, but nationwide. If you have not voted in over a year, just check your voter registration status. In South Carolina, voters can go to scvotes.org and click on check my voter registration status. In other states, check with your local voter registration offices. Make sure that your address matches your residence address. Your mailing address and your residence address matters when ballots are mailed to your home. Make sure beyond any reasonable doubt that you have address change forms. The voter registration office have those things. Don't end up going to the wrong precinct. However, with COVID-19 being in our midst, many of you are going to vote from home. Know the rules that deal with absentee voting. For those of you like the League of Women Voters and other organizations that have historically helped voters, please make yourselves available. Like for me, everyone in South Carolina, I go on my Facebook page all the time, letting folk know that I personally am available every day from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. every night if you have questions about voting. Absentee voting, I get on my computer and printer. A lot of people don't have computers and printers at home. If they're going to vote at home, they have to have special paperwork, and it can be expedited by just pulling it up online. A lot of people don't have that ability, particularly elderly senior citizens. So the League of Women Voters, NAACP, all of you voting advocate agencies, get on the stick. Now is the time. Make
Yes.
yourselves available. Give your phone numbers. Everyone in South Carolina and beyond knows that my phone number is 803-968-3375.
Yes.
Email familyunitinc@gmail.com. Make yourselves available, because when voters go out trying to get voter registration offices on the phone, oftentimes there's no one there. There's a machine saying, I'm away from my desk. That's not going to be good enough. The voters have to have help. And make sure you know, voters, when the deadline is for voter registration. Make sure you know when the deadline is, because if you go past the deadline and try to register, you're not going to be eligible to vote in November. There are so many things. Check with your local voter registration office, and you civil rights advocates out there, get busy, get busy, get busy. Now is the time.
That's right.
And I'll sing a very, very, very short song, but has relevance to the civil rights struggle.
Right.
Please.
And it goes like this. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
Christine Woodhouse, Michael Heiser, and Dr. Brenda Williams. Thank you all so very much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Continue the work. We're going to show this again, like Kwame said, vote, the registration eve, voter.
November 2nd
November
would be Election Day Eve.
Okay,
so-
Election Day Eve. We'll show
And
it
then,
again.
then we'll also replay this this panel discussion as well. So
Okay, yeah, we'll be.
Yes.
You guys want to do a whole new one?
Yes.
But thank you all so much. Happy voting day whenever you do.
Thank
Yeah.
y'all.
Thank you, Michael.
you.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
Thank
Christine.
you.
Yes, thank
Thank
you, Brenda.
Who is this that just joined
Who
us?
is this handsome?
Oh, this is this is my long-suffering partner, Tom. So he can tell you this documentary is
Hey,
definitely
Tom.
an act of
Hey,
insanity.
Tom.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Brenda.
Tom
Hi.
told us about her insanity, and we want to thank you for cultivating that insanity.
Yeah. She's insane. A good insane.
The good kind. Hey, my office is full of that.
Yeah.
You guys,
It's like good trouble, Brenda, right? Good craziness.
Good trouble. Good trouble.
good trouble. That's right. Stay
I want to thank you guys for showing the film and for hosting the event.
Yes, no
All right.
problem. Thank you so very
Thank you.
much. Good
Hey,
night.
buddy.
Good night.
No, no.
All right, good
Man,
to see all y'all.
love you.
Love you too.